Okay, welcome, folks. Tonight is March 14th, 2011. This is a public hearing for the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. Anybody wishing to address the board tonight, you're going to have to do so from the podium and state your name and address and sign the sign-in sheet as well. We have three matters on tonight. We're going to take them in the order of the agenda. The first one is ZB 2011, number 4, special permit for signs, Ung Meng Lee, Ung Lun Lee, 1141 Bridge Street, to construct one freestanding internally illuminated sign pursuant to 6.3.2 of the zoning ordinance of the City of Lowell.
Good evening.
Welcome, sir.
I'm Rick Hammer of Hammer & Son Signs, who has designed the sign, and I have a letter also that you probably have in your possession from Rachel that explains a little bit about the sign and what their recommendations are. If you want to start there.
Sure. I mean,
Has everyone read that?
you've read that, right? So
Yes, sir.
what I get from it is that she's saying the large field of white illuminated background, which is not desirable in a residential neighborhood. She's suggesting what I think is what she proposed on the back,
Yes.
which is a dark background with white letters.
Correct.
Is that something that is acceptable to the applicant?
Yes, we're amenable to this, and the reason for the sign showing the way it is, we really didn't know what was going to go on the sign. You'll see there's only an address on it, and I am told that there's up to 4, 5 units that could be in there, or if someone comes in to rent it, it could be 1, 2, or 3. So
Sure.
the reason just for it to be blank, or intentions were not necessarily needing to be a white. And so the reverse colors with the opaque background, I feel would be very low lighting, being internally illuminated. Just the letters itself would light up.
Okay, and I think with that change, you would have the design planners, Rachel Kiska's support, which helps us. It appears as though the new freestanding sign does not exceed the maximum size of 30 square feet, and the sign is located 20 feet above the finished grade, which is also acceptable. So there doesn't seem to be any problem with it, so long as you agree to the recommended changes by Rachel Kiska. And from what you're telling me, you are in agreement to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody here wish to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Is anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? In opposition, and hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And we'll open up to the board for consideration. Bill?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Vesna? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Gary.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
And Vesna?
I have no comments.
And Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant does agree with Rachel Kiska's recommendation, so therefore I will support the petition, yes.
Okay, Rick, anything?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Aaron, we need a motion?
Make a motion to approve. Should we put a condition on that, Mr. Chairman, with the background change? Is that necessary?
Yeah, well, I think, sir, you're accepting, what the board would be approving is the dark background with the white lighters, low lighting?
That's correct.
All right, so that's on this picture here?
Yes.
So we'd have them sign that, so it'd be consistent with the picture on the back, so
Okay.
wouldn't need any conditions.
Okay. With that being said, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
And roll call, please?
Mr. Bailey?
Approved.
Mr. Belanger?
Approve?
Mr. Gary?
Approve?
Mr. Noon?
Approve.
Mr. Patton?
Approve.
Okay, sir, you've been unanimously approved. If you could come up and sign the back of this sign right here and give it to Mr. Clausen, you'll be all set. Good luck. Sir, I've dated it. I'm just going to ask you to sign below it, and this is what we've approved, okay?
You see you sneak in.
Great. You can just give it to the guy in the blue shirt. You're all set. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next petition is ZB 2011, number 2, request for variance, Ung Meng Lee, 32 Branch Street, to add an additional residential unit to a mixed-use building without sufficient parking pursuant to 6.1 of the zoning code. Attorney Flood.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, representing Branch Street Commercial Realty Trust. With me tonight are the owners, Meng Ung and his wife, Lun Li Ung. And as the notice stated, we're requesting a variance from section 6.1.4 of the zoning ordinance where short one space. My client has owned the property at 32 Branch Street and presently has 5 commercial units on the first floor and 2 residential units on the second floor. We have also requested a special permit from the planning board to add a 3rd residential unit, which brings about the request for the variance. The property is zoned NB, and you can only have 2 residential units in an NB district. The 3rd one, you need a special permit. The building at the site was originally built in 1900, according to the records at the City of Lowell Assessor's Office. So it really is a non-conforming structure. In addition, I've had a title examination conducted on the property, and I wish to advise the board that the description of the property and the lot has not changed since 1943. My examiner went back 50 years. So what's there today was there in 1943, which was prior to zoning in the city. The Youngs purchased the property in 1997, and in 1999, I appeared before this board on their behalf to request a special permit to renovate a non-conforming structure and a variance from the parking regulations at that time. The building at the time of purchase was in a terrible and deplorable state, and the city was about to take some action to tear it down. So they came in and they agreed to renovate it. Later, they added the 2 residential pieces on the second floor. And I think you're all familiar with the neighborhood. It's a very busy and congested neighborhood. But most of the people that come to the commercial units are from the neighborhood. They walk. So the Youngs have never had any problem whatsoever in that area with parking. I have reviewed the comments that were provided from the city engineer, the parking, the transportation engineer, and the DPD, and I've discussed them with both my engineer and the Youngs. Jim Aho, who is our project engineer, has indicated that he can convert parking space number 1 that's shown on the plan into a handicap spot, which is one of the concerns I think that the city engineer had. Mr. Ung is also willing to work with the DPD to provide for rollout bins instead of the dumpster. This will take care of one of the major problems that is shown in those comments, because then we can get rid of the dumpster and then provide more room for snow storage. The only concern that I had was as to landscaping. I think you're familiar with the neighborhood. I think if you put anything in at the entrance, it wouldn't last long. Too many people around, they'd pull it out. That's my opinion. But the area on the second floor that he wants to convert into a residential building consists of 830 square feet. It's a small piece, but it's right beside the elevator that's in the building. There is an elevator that services this building. And that's the reason we need this variance, because with this one additional space, according to the parking chart, we're one short. Mr. Nung has told me that during the entire time he's owned the property, he's had no problems with parking. Most of the people and most of the commercial units close early, and the only people that would be parking there would be the residential units in the evening. So because of the non-conforming status of the building and the size and the shape of the lot, I feel that he would suffer a substantial hardship if this was denied. And based on the use of the present building, I think the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, without derogating from the intent of the zoning ordinance. So we're here to answer any questions, and as I said, Mr. Ung is willing to work with the DPD to handle that situation with the dumpster. That seems to be everybody's concern.
What size is the dumpster that's there now?
You know what size it is?
8 yards?
Yeah, 8-yard dumpster, yeah.
So how many rollouts would that take?
Well, I think if we had a rollout for, we would work with Aaron, whether we need one for every commercial unit. We could place them on the concrete slab that's in front of the building.
So are those similar to the ones we get at home?
From the city,
Same
right.
thing?
Yeah.
So basically, each unit would have one of those?
What?
Each unit would have a rollout,
Each commercial unit plus the 3 would have one from the city.
and there'd be plenty of places to put those that wouldn't affect the snow removal, or?
No, snow removal could go where the dumpster is located now.
So I guess what I'm saying is these rollouts wouldn't go where the dumpsters are
No,
located now?
no, they go on the concrete pad in the side of the building.
Okay.
Now, Counselor, are any of the upstairs residential units occupied at this time?
2.
Okay.
How long have those been occupied?
When did you put? How many? 1 year.
Aaron, from the planning department's perspective, do you have any input for this project?
No, one of our primary concerns was the on-site traffic circulation. Wanted to make sure that there was enough room for cars to maneuver and access the parking spaces shown on the plan, and to make sure that a delivery truck could actually go and pick up and remove waste from the dumpster. So that's kind of what was the germ of the discussion of, should they use a 8-yard dumpster, or should they use the totes? And the discussions we've had with the health department is that it's something that they actually recommend in many cases for this kind of building type, because it is more flexible. It can be located closer to the building, away from the street, and it can preserve more of the lot itself for things like parking and maneuvering and snow storage. So
Yeah, no, it looks like with that dumpster gone, it would do a lot to at least help the flow and snow removal. So I guess the question is, they can definitely get those rollouts for the units there, you can do that.
yep, that's my understanding. We can also, DPD can work with the applicant and to finalize the layout of the site if the board wishes, just to make sure that it works practically. And I should also note that the planning board will be reviewing the special permit next Monday for this project.
And also, I just want to point out, if there happen to be too much snow there, he does have a contractor that takes care of the Bridge Street site that can come over and remove the snow from this site if it was necessary.
Yeah, well, that's a big concern of mine. I mean, I was out there this afternoon. I think the project can work, but the snow that's there now currently, and most of it's melted, as we all know, absorbed at least 2 to 3 parking spots that would be on the plan now. So I would be pretty firm on the snow removal for sure, so.
And so what about the handicap spot? That would be plenty of room, they could move that, they could,
He can move, make room on number 1 to make that handicap,
and that would,
Side.
there's enough room for that to be handicap compliant?
probably on the side, yes. That's what Jim Aho told me.
So it would require a new plan having that,
Yeah, I'll submit a new plan.
Okay, anybody here wish to speak in favor of this petition, in favor? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I wish to be recorded in favor of this project. I walk by there a lot. I did about a couple of weeks ago, and it is a good project. And with any conditions you put on this project, like the new plan, I urge that the Zoning Board of Appeals unanimously approve this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of this petition, in favor? Anybody here wish to speak in opposition to this petition? In opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. We'll open up to the board for consideration. Bill, your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, Mr. Flood. Currently, the parking that's on the site, is it, I think you show on the plan, existing would be, you're saying there's 10 spots currently on the site?
Right, on the plan that I present, yes.
Okay. You're bringing in a total of 10 per your plan, right?
Right.
But today, how many parking spots are actually there? Because I know they're marked off, but I had some difficulty trying to figure out how many spots because
I
of the
think
snow.
what's probably marked off as 7, because that was originally what we approved, it was approved back in 99, but,
Because it almost looked like where you have like 9 and 10, it looks like there's actually, looks like 4 spots, but
they were facing the other way in the original
Yeah.
plan.
so,
This way you park this.
so your proposal is for 10.
Right.
And Aaron, do you agree with the parking chart calculations that were submitted with the plans?
Yeah, the calculations
Okay.
are in accord with how the zoning ordinance requires them to be calculated.
The maximum number that they require, is it 11 or is it 12?
11 using the shared parking chart.
So you're one short
One
per,
shot.
one short per the plan, okay. And you had mentioned about landscaping, is that part of the landscape open space that they talk about? There's
I
no
just don't-
proposal for that.
Yes,
And is there currently a fence that surrounds the perimeter of the parking area and back? I believe there is.
there is,
I
there
know,
was.
well, I think there is, but that's a requirement, isn't it?
There is, the zoning ordinance does require a landscape buffer of some sort around parking facilities that are adjacent to residential buildings in residentially zoned districts, and it can be either an opaque landscaping such as an arborvitae, or it can be a opaque fence. like a-
Right, they have to have either or, either the
Correct.
solid fence or landscaping, buffering, but the residential units, how many spaces are they gonna take up? So you say there'd be three units, Mr. Flood?
Right.
So they'll occupy,
Well, at night, there's really nobody there, so if they needed 6, they could have 6.
okay. Will those be marked off at all for
They'll
the
mark off the spaces based on the new plan.
residents? In other words,
Oh, will they be,
yeah, what I was I was just curious about,
I don't
because you got a mixed use there of commercial. I'd hate to see the residents have to go to the street, but is there any plan to give at least one spot per unit
I
for the
haven't
residents?
discussed that, but we could do that. 1 spot per
Well,
unit.
I think I would like to see that. I just because of the congestion of that area, I think that's fair enough to the people that
Sure.
are living there.
What was that one, Bill, that you
For
said?
the residential units,
Yeah.
I mean, per the plan, it calls out for a
Two,
total of 6, but what I was asking, Mr. Flood, could they at least designate 3, 1 for each of the residential units, even though Mr. Flood believes that, the commercial piece will be there during the day and then nighttime, but I think for the residents, they should at least have a designated parking area.
Yeah.
And the snow storage, that's going to take place where the proposed dumpster was on the
Dumpster was,
plan,
right.
correct? Yeah.
And once again, if it's too much, we will remove from site.
Yep,
Agree to do that.
okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
If we put a condition that snow removal will take place, if it's too much, it's kind of,
Well, if they go on to the parking spaces and they can't maneuver,
so if the snow encroaches onto eliminated
Right.
spot, it shall be removed from the site.
move from site, yeah. Because we already have someone, Mr. Geary, that's gonna do it out in Bridge Street anyway, so we can do that if we have to. Hopefully
On-
next year
on
won't
any
be as
part.
bad as this year.
Well, some years will, I mean, I don't know what, hopefully never again, but I don't believe that.
Can I just real quick, Mr. Flood, what did you say about the bins, the trash bins?
They're
They're
all-
going to be stationed where, on Nickel Street, on the side of the
Oh, they're
building?
gonna be on the pad located in front. See where it says concrete pad on the plan? And we'll work with DPD to,
I don't see it, but,
it's
Where
there,
is
Right in the middle?
It's basically right along the back side of the building.
back of
right-
the
right
building.
adjacent.
all right.
They'll be stored there.
Okay, but for pickup, they'll be stored there, but for pickup, are they gonna be located on Nickel Street on the side? I was just trying to envision what this is gonna look like.
Probably the ones that the city would pick up would be brought out to Nickel Street.
Yep.
But the ones that the carrier they'd come in and they'd load them in the
Okay.
parking lot.
Okay.
They
I'm all
can
set.
wheel them right to the truck.
All set, thank you.
Okay, Gary
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
and Vesna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think
this property, these locations, you know, I know this location very well. The people who are frequent customers for this area, they usually park across the street. I myself do that too, and then walk across the street to Mr. Ong property, and then you know, either get my hair cut or something there. I also noticed that as well, that the 2 units that being occupied now, at least one of the unit, I went and checked with them. They don't have car. They practically walk to and from the store, and if there's a function right over the Pilot Cities, they usually walk over there as well. So a lot of the people in this area, they usually, if tenant, newcomers have no car, and I don't think this is going to be a detriment to the business or the neighborhood in these areas. I think this request is very reasonable, and Attorney Flood, with his client, willing to accommodate it with regard to dumpsters. And I like the ideas that to have a rolled-up dumpsters. That way, it's cleared away for more parking if needed, and also the idea of having snow removal removed from the property when it's bad winter like this year. So that, all that said, I'm in favor of this petition, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Vesna. And I'm just writing down some of the things we discussed as possible conditions if the project's approved. So before we go any further, I just want to make sure I have everything that we've discussed, and then we can start out with the other comments. But one is to work with the planning department on an acceptable parking grid for the plan. The second one is depict a handicap compliant parking spot on the plan that I think is going to be parking spot number 1. And revise all the changes that we're talking about in the plan accordingly. Remove the dumpster from the plan and actually from the site. And contract snow removal if the snow encroaches on any parking spot. And utilize the concrete pad for any of the rollout garbage containers and depict that on the plan. And designate 3 specific parking spots for residential units only. That's, I think, what we've discussed so far there.
What was the first one?
First one was work with Department of Planning on an acceptable parking grid, I think. Is that what we talked to you guys about? Is that what you said you'd work with them on? Did I misspeak?
I was just referring to removing the dumpster. Reusing, replacing in its place the what's called the totes, and locating an appropriate spot, making sure that the parking space.
Okay, so if I eliminate that and the other things we talked about, it kind of catches it. Okay, and we can go on with the meeting, but I just wanted to, before I lose track of what we've talked about. Corey?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get into details now, Mr. Flood and Joe, now, we have a correspondence from the planning board to asking us to continue this petition until they review it on the 21st. So is it applicable here that we go forward with it and vote on this tonight, or what's your thoughts?
The planning board typically does request that the zoning board wait to make a decision on any action that needs both the planning board and the zoning board approval. The zoning code kind of asks that it be done that way, so that any decision and conditions of a decision that the planning board makes isn't automatically incorporated into a zoning board approval if it was an approved project. So typically that's the steps in the process. In this case, it would be okay for the zoning board to move forward because it's the planning board is reviewing a special permit application, not a site plan review. It's a different kind of review. And it's in the case there's a site plan, it's typically preferable that go through planning board first, because they typically look at those kind of larger projects and then feed it into either a variance or a special permit from the zoning board's perspective. So I think it would be okay. It's kind of up to this board how you prefer to handle it.
Okay, so we can go forward. That's good news. But as far as the parking, we're going to need a new parking plan here with the handicap spot and whatnot. So should we bother making conditions? Because the planning board's going to sort all that out.
My personal perspective on that, the recommendation would be to go ahead and add the condition, just to make sure it's in there, that when the planning board goes to review the project, at the very least they understand what your concerns clearly understand, itemized out what your concerns were. And
Okay.
the planning board can work with the applicant, ourselves, and DPD to make sure that, perhaps can even be put on a plan prior to the planning board review next Monday.
Okay, so the good news is we were able to go forward, and I'd rather do that. I know this family well, and they've done a good job down there, and I would like to move this forward. But the questions I do have, Mr. Flood, is that now the parking lot would probably require new striping, correct? Because the
Right.
way it's laid out now is very angled, and
Right.
so they would agree to,
This is a different configuration than what
yes.
previous approval was. It were on the, I don't know whether you were sitting then or not. 99?
Nope, a little before my
I
time,
have that
Counselor.
old plan, but everything was facing the other way. So,
Okay.
yes, they'd have to be striped.
Pave and restripe the lot, okay. And again, just, as a couple of members talked about, and I mentioned earlier, is the snow removal, that, that will certainly be a condition, as it does currently take away about 2 or 3 spots right now. I mean, I know it's been a lot above average snowfall this winter, but just, when things get tight, I'd like to see that snow removed. So, Mr. Chairman, apparently we are able to go forward this evening with this, and I do support it, and echoing Mr. Noon's comments that, that neighborhood's very congested, and they could basically walk to anything they need down there. You have supermarkets, stores, video stores, hair salons, it's all there. So I'd be relying heavily on people on foot traffic down there. So I don't see one more small unit making a huge impact on this project whatsoever. So I do support it. And there are some details to iron out that you'll face with the planning board. But for the most part, I do support the project, but we will have conditions for you. Thank you very much.
And Rick?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Right, and Attorney Flood, just for the decision, what we're going to be requiring now is that the applicants give us proposed findings regarding the...
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, regarding the variance. So the,
I can do that.
yeah, and you want to tell us a little bit more about the variance and the criteria as far as this
I
building?
thought I did. I said because of based on the fact that it was non-conforming structure that was built on that lot and the shape of the lot back in 1943. It's been there forever. It's the shape and the size of the lot that he'd suffer hardship if it was denied. And I think
Right, and I went by there, that seems to be a unique piece of property compared to everything else
Else in-
around
yeah.
there.
I think it's probably one of the only places with parking anyways in the area, so. But at the time that lot was established, there were no parking regulations in the city of Lowell, so.
Okay.
Now, one question I have too, now, you have 3 or 4 storefronts in the front, is it 3?
5.
5, okay. Now, all the employees, they park in the rear? Because I was there about 4 o'clock today, and there was only 3 spaces
they-
occupied, so.
They don't park, most of the people, he told me, walk. There's a
Like most-
bakery, there's a
Yeah, okay.
barber, there's a video store,
Yep.
so. He
Food
said most
market,
of the people walk there.
Yeah, and that was a busy time, and there was only 3 spots occupied at that time, so I don't think the parking will be an issue, in all honesty.
He said it hasn't been.
Excellent.
So as long, once, I guess the procedure would be if you submitted your proposed findings to Aaron, he could get them to me within, a couple of days. If this is approved tonight, within a couple of days, and they could be approved. Hopefully before Thursday, if possible, because I'll be away for a week and I don't want to delay you. So,
It would probably be appropriate if Mr. Flood submitted the findings or the narrative or his discussion of how they met the criteria of the variance.
right.
What was discussed tonight, if you want it on paper, that would be appropriate.
Right, so you could give us the narrative as to what the
As to
criteria were for the
criteria
variance.
For the variance, okay.
And we would put that that would be a proposed finding, that would be given to me, and I could take the whole part or any part of it to help formulate the decision.
Okay.
Just so we make sure that we have that in there.
I didn't realize that you were.
We we had done it before, it's a recent decision that, called that issue to our attention, so where, during the transition, I think it kind of fell through the cracks, but it's really the better way to go, and it's easy, I think it's ultimately
We
easy
used
for
to do it
everybody.
years ago. A
Yeah.
few years ago, we used to do that, right.
Yeah, so I'd require that as a condition as well. So, Joe, have you kept these conditions pretty much? Or do you want me to read them off what I have again to make sure we're on the same page? So eliminate the first one, they said, but that the applicant submit a new plan with the following changes. That depicts the handicap compliant parking spot as number 1 and show that it meets the handicap parking spot measurements. And remove the dumpster from the plan and from the site if it isn't already. Where the concrete pad is, we can designate that area on the plan for the rollout garbage cans. And that 3 of the parking spots are designated specifically for residential units. And that the applicant submit a proposed findings and/or a narrative regarding the request for a variance. Okay?
I have all of those, as well as snow storage potentially being removed off-site.
Yeah, and that was my last one. And snow storage to be removed if and when it encroaches on any parking spot. Is that your understanding, Attorney Flood?
Yes.
What we discussed? Okay, so any further discussion?
The restriping of the parking lot, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, we didn't discuss that. Is that something,
Not a problem, no, because it's gonna change.
okay, so the parking lot shall be restriped, Joe, as well. Okay, so, need a motion?
Make a motion to approve with conditions.
Second it.
Okay, and roll call, Aaron?
Mr. Bailey?
I guess I got to ask a question.
Oh,
Was part of the conditions, did you have it in the residential units designated for one each? Yeah.
Yes.
I thought, okay. Approve with conditions.
Mr. Belanger?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Gary?
Approved with conditions, but we also said the condition that they bring this before the planning board, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the ones we discussed,
I didn't have it as a condition.
but they have to do that
They
anyway.
have to do, yeah, they do, yeah.
We don't get their unit, we don't need the parking anyway, so.
Okay, we can continue with the
Mr.
roll
Noon?
call.
Approve with condition.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with conditions.
Okay, so you've been unanimously approved. You could just sign this plan here that's going to be revised anyway, and you could hand that to Aaron. Yeah. Okay, the next petition is ZB 2011, special permit and variance request for test and build, 1088, 1100 Gorham Street, to extend an existing non-conforming use as well as seek relief from parking dimension requirements pursuant to Section 12.4B, Section 4.52, and Section 6.110, and Section 6.26 of the zoning code. Attorney Lighties.
Mr. Chairman, board members, George Theolides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, and I'm here this evening in behalf of Mr. Patel's wife, actually. Mr. Patel is with me this evening, but she's actually the applicant and principal of this particular company that's making the application here this evening. But he's the engineer, and he's going to point out the things that need to be pointed out on our map. Anyway, this is a project that we have quite honestly been fast-tracking because my client got involved with the possible purchase of this property very recently. The seller is quite anxious to move the property and has really put some very tight time constraints on my client with reference to that particular thing. We had hoped to get here a little earlier, actually, but in any event, we were before the planning board, this actually 3 times. One was our informal, and the next 2 times were for review, corrections, modifications, additions, et cetera, to try and come up with what we believe is the best plan for this location. I guess I should tell you what the location is. I haven't even indicated that. I think you're all familiar with the property at 1088 1100 Gorham Street. Most people know it as the Rosenblum Paper or Party Store. It's right up next to the school. Across the street, a little further up is the cemetery on Gorham Street. And it's a neighborhood that is, as far as Gorham Street is concerned, is very much business and commercial, certainly to the rear, on what I'll call the cemetery side, is a great residential area. But beyond that, as you well know, Gorham Street is principally a major thoroughfare in and out of the city, and that particular location has most of the properties along Gorham Street are commercially oriented. That property, I was somewhat shocked, and I can't guarantee this. The assessor's office indicates that that building was built in 1800. The initial original building. I don't know if that's a mistake or not. I've actually never done the title to it. It certainly is, in many respects, the building I'm talking about in the front now, certainly appears old enough to possibly have been built that long, but that far ago, but who knows. Anyway, what my client is proposing to do is to remove the three structures that stick out on what I call the right-hand side of the building as you're looking at it. And by the way, I did put in some pictures, but having trouble with my color copy machine, so they don't look exactly I think they're a little purplish as opposed to green. But anyway, but just to give you an idea, those three appendages to the building as you're looking at it from the front, one of them is what you might call a modern new brick addition that was put up for retail purposes, and then the two behind it will be removed in order to put in a brand new parking lot right there. Also, consistent with that particular part of it is, I think, a very important element, and you'll see that it was a condition that we agreed with the planning board, is that except for the one new cut to go into the new parking lot, we intend to close off any access to the front of the building, which is now the entryway to the store, and those entryways will all be on the Winebeck Street side. The Winebeck Street is the street that runs perpendicular out of Gorham Street to the rear, and the entrance for any aspects of the use of the building will be on Winebeck Street. And we will complete landscaping the front so that now we have a much better front as opposed to an entirely hot-topped and not so pretty facade to the front. Beyond that, what my client wants to do is he wants to increase the retail use by including in a new market. The market will be not a convenience store. It'll be a little bigger than a convenience store, but not a supermarket. It'll be like, I'll use the word superette. I don't know. The first Demoulas supermarket on Dummer Street was a superette, and I think maybe it was 6,000 square feet. But anyway, and he intends to keep the party store there, the Rosenblum operation kind of party store, paper store there. But in the back, the large section that's there, he intends that in the past it's been used for various forms of warehousing, light manufacturing, and industrial uses, and he intends to try to really build that up into something that will be much more useful and operative, and of course in the process hopefully create a lot more jobs in the community, both on the retail and on the warehousing, light industrial end. So we think we've got the makings of a real good project. We're kind of excited about fixing it. There are two basic principles, I guess, or two basic issues that need to be dealt with tonight. One is the extension of the current usages on the property, the non-conforming. We're in a TMU district. The retail will be more than 5,000 square feet. So we need a special permit to extend the retail as well as the light industry warehousing part of it. I think I might have in error pointed out the section that refers to light warehousing in my application, but obviously it's a special permit application for both properties, for both types of businesses. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is with regard to the whole street situation on Winebeck Street. I have to tell you that having lived in the city for more than 6 decades, I never even knew there was a street there by the name of Weinbeck Street. And to call it a street is probably an exaggeration. If any of you, and I'm sure you did, went up and saw it, you would see that it really is not much of a street, to say the least. It is, however, the area where the school bus exits from the, I'm confused. What school is that? Is that that's adjacent to it anyways? The school bus that comes out, what is it, Walter? Butler, thank you. The school buses that exit from the Butler School do come out one small stretch of Weinbeck Street to Gorham Street. So bearing in mind and dealing with the planning board on that, what we decided and agreed to was that the entryway to the new parking lot from Gorham Street would be an entrance only, and that cars would exit from that parking lot on Weinbeck Street back out to Gorham Street. In addition to that, and the other reason at this point, the principal reason that we need to deal with a variance is the fact that for about at least 225 feet from going back from Gorham Street, we've agreed to put a granite in the cribbing adjacent to the new parking lot. That's a condition that the planning board did. But beyond the parking, beyond the new parking lot, the area from there to the rear of the building is about 225 feet. And there's nothing, there's never been a curb there. The street isn't even finished. The Weinbeck Street isn't a street. It's not finished. It's not paved. But we want to use the area, as you'll see on the plan, for our parking. It's been pointed out by the city engineer, and we talked about this with the planning department, that currently you're not supposed to have anything wider than a 25-foot opening for parking. Well, I mean, the whole thing is wide open, and the whole thing will, under our plan, be wide open. However, in order to do that, we need you to grant us a variance to allow us to park perpendicular to the building in spaces, and I'm not sure what numbers they are, but the ones from where the loading dock is to the rear of the building. I think Aaron and Joe have been good enough to put together a memo to you folks, which includes the conditions that were imposed upon the project by the planning board. They're on the bottom of page 2 of that. Those are things we all worked out. One of the principal things we need to do is sit down with the city down the road and see if there's a way we can do something with Weinbeck Street and make it better for all parties concerned. We want to be able to bring trucks in the back for the warehousing part of it, et cetera. But obviously, we know that there needs to be some work done back there. We can't pave the street. We can't do anything to the street. We need the city to cooperate as well. That's when you talk about the variance, and you talk about the conditions for a variance, certainly we're in a classic situation that, owing to the topography and the layout of that place, it's clearly an important part of the requirement that meets the variance requirement, and it's certainly not going to be detrimental to the neighborhood, and it's in the best interest as well. So I have with me, as I indicated before, and by the way, no detriment to the public good, and we're not going to nullify or in any way derogate from the intent of the zoning by doing the parking this way. I have with me Mr. Patel. I probably have already spoken too long, too much anyways, but I wanted to give you a picture. I also, and I'm generally, I learned my lesson from Mr. Bailey in the past. I tried to get the material to you people far enough in advance so that you could look it over, because we had the zoning board, the planning board hearing last week, and everything was very much crunched up, and I appreciate that Joe and Aaron trying to get this memo out to you as fast as they could. I couldn't deliver this material that I've given to you today until this morning, unfortunately. You'll note also, by the way, the Exhibit A, which requires me to give you the listing of all of the matters that are affected as listed about part of the criteria for granting the special permit, items A through F as referred to in Aaron's and Joe's, I think I keep saying Aaron. Joe, I'm stealing, I apologize. Joe's the author. In Joe's memo, I think I've addressed all of those items and given you the information with regard to how those things are being impacted. And if you can give us a couple more minutes, Mr. Patel will just show you from the plan there what else or
Sure.
how we intend to lay it out. Identify yourself first.
My name is Anil Patel. I'm from 6 Angle Street, Lowell. I'm representing this property 1088 Gorham Street. I would like to briefly explain the plans and everything. So thank you for respected chairman and members and the staff allowing me to present this stuff. Would
Okay,
you mind
yeah.
if I come? Hello. Yeah, okay. So by doing that, it allows us to meet the parking requirements and the zoning requirements as well as the landscaping requirement on that. The another things we adding in the front over there is currently all the space around this building is all paved parking. So there is no landscaping or anything like that. So what we're doing in this plan is front of the building completely will be pretty much landscaped. So that will make a little bit better appearance as well as the look and feel in that area. And then right now on the Gorham Street, if you see, all the access are from anywhere on that particular pavement, as well as from the Wayneback Street, there is no curb cut on this side, so we pretty much can access from anywhere over there. By making a changes to the plan, we have only access from Gorham Street is only one way, and that's only 20 feet. Will basically make a better traffic situations and getting into the parking. As well as there is a Wayneback Street is not a busy all the time, only 2 times a day is a busy time, and there is from early morning kids drop off from this side and they just exit from this side to out. As well as in the evening time or afternoon time, they come in a Gorham Street, they get into the Fair Street and then pick up the kids and they only get out from this area. That's what normal patterns that we are seeing. And parents coming out of this school can basically easily access inside the parking spot, and that's why we made a 2-way parking entrance over here, so they're allowed to get inside there, but only coming out same directions, cannot go on the Gorham Street. There will be a sign to no one-way street kind of thing. Second thing is this area, there is pretty much, it's about 22 to 23 feet deep space available as a open land right now, and that has been trying to convert into the parking space. And by allowing a parking space variance, that will allow the utilizations of the warehouse or industrial space pretty much, and the parking space can be utilized to park the employee parking over there. So other than that, there will be a sidings. The area will be removed in the front over there. We will try to reuse the sidings from the existing building that will match with the sidings on the building. Someday in the future, maybe we will improve by having a vinyl sidings or something, but currently to match outer look, we will be utilizing some of the wood and recycle that to match that. Dumpster area been proposed by the planning board over here, because when parents exiting from here, dumpster is only 1 or 2 times pretty much being emptied out, so it doesn't interfere with the traffic and reversing the car from that parking spot. So they make us to do this pretty much. Other than that, as Alidus mentioned, that currently this retail 1 section is being used by the Rosenblum Party Supply Center, and this is a 40 by 40 space plus some rear space on the same building, that 31 by 40 deep, also being used for retail purpose of paper dish wholesale selling, and that will be moved into the back area. So that is the whole proposed plan, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Can I also mention something else, Mr. Chairman, that I
Sure.
forgot to mention before? We have one other issue that I think I need to ask you to address by way of the variance. Gorham Street, as the city engineer has pointed out, has been recently paved and has a 5-year moratorium on it. So we're asking the plan be approved, and the planning board has approved it with the entryway to the new parking lot from Gorham Street. But I just need something that will protect us, I guess, in the interim, a temporary variance to allow us to be able to go into that spot. Maybe Joe or Aaron can explain that as well as I'm saying it to you. In other words, theoretically, if we couldn't use a so-called curb cut, I mean, there's no curb there in Gorham Street anyways, I wouldn't want to get caught in a position where they say, well, you didn't get an access or egress from Gorham Street from the zoning board. So I'm also asking that access and egress from Gorham Street, as we have it laid out, be approved as part of our variance granting tonight. Maybe Joe can, or Aaron can speak to that.
Yeah, do you have any comments on that, Aaron?
Sure, I can describe the curb opening moratorium. So basically, whenever the state or the city repaves a street in the transportation improvements, there's a 5-year moratorium that's put on the street opening typically it's for something like cutting into the street for utilities, cutting into utility lines in the street. The idea is that it was just paved, and when you start cutting into it, you degrade the longevity, the length that the street's going to last before you have to repave it again. So there's an automatic moratorium. The street opening permit is sought through the city engineer's department. The process is an automatic denial if you're looking to open up the street for one that's been repaved less than 5 years. But there is a process whereby you can work with the Department of Public Works, the director, and the city engineer to figure out a solution to deal with that. In some ways, it's repaving the street from curb to curb for a certain length of the area that you're opening it. In this case, if it's just a cut into the street to either reset a granite curb, or something along those lines, it shouldn't be a problem. But either way, there is a process where the applicant should be able to get curb in there, provide the curb as they've proposed, without too much of a delay. At the very least, they would need to go through this kind of so-called appeal process with the Department of Public Works and figure out a simple solution that's not going to degrade the longevity of the street.
So for our purposes tonight, how can we assist in that if it's not, there's nothing really before us on that right now? Is there, Attorney Leides?
I guess there is, in the sense that the curb cut is showing there, and I just want to be able to say, yes, both the planning board and the zoning board approve that as an entryway right there, and then we'll deal with the DPW or whoever it is after that, presumably. I'm not even sure.
So it's within the scope of our authority to...
Yeah, basically, whatever you approve in reference to the plans that are shown or submitted to you from the petitioner, the plans clearly show that the curb's being closed and there'll be curbing, and the condition on the planning board side of things was that any new curbing along Gorham Street be VA4 vertical granite curb. So yeah, I think that alone should be enough. I mean, at the very least, gives the city engineer and the folks at the Department of Public Works who make these decisions, understanding where the request is coming from.
Okay. Okay, anything else, Attorney Lights? That's it for now. Okay, anybody here wishes to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Ma'am?
Yes, good evening. My name is Carol McCarthy. I live at 64 Blossom Street in Lowell. I also co-chair the Sacred Heart Neighborhood Improvement Group. As Mr. Elides said, Gorman Street is a gateway into the city, and as a resident in that area and as a neighborhood leader, one of the last things we want to see is some of our businesses closing. And when the sign went up on Rosenblum saying it was for sale, I mean, in this economy, who would come along and want to purchase it? And eventually, I was really afraid that we'd see that building just close up and stand there. And when Mr. Patel came along wanting to purchase the building, but not only purchase the building, but make improvements to the building, I mean, Rosenblum shows its age. I mean, you can see the age of the building. It looks so worn out and old, and I think to breathe new life into the building is a wonderful idea. And if you want to look at the swimming pool that's up there, that swimming pool hasn't been filled in over 3 years, for 3 summers. And I almost want to say with the economy this year, I doubt very much if we'll be able to convince Mr. Lynch to give us lifeguards and to fill the pool this year. So it's probably kissing that pool goodbye. And the most activity you'll see in the summertime up there will be just for the tennis courts and the basketball courts. The only concern I do have, and I have this concern with any business that comes within the neighborhood and all that, is mostly the hours of operation. You know, he's not gonna be like a 24/7 hours, I don't know, and litter. I mean, if we could only train the kids and the adults to put their litter in their pockets or put it in their car and dump it in the trash when they go somewhere else, not buy that candy bar and walk out of the store and walk down the street and start throwing candy wrappers around the neighborhood. So just what he can do to maintain litter within the area, and probably now the basketball courts when the kids go in there. So those are my only 2 concerns. Other than that, I am in favor of this. I'm so happy to see that this building's going to get a new life. The neighborhood's going to get to see an improvement in the building, and who knows, I think a lot of business for there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Anybody else wish to speak in favor?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Mark Coleman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. Wish to be recorded in favor of this. This is a win-win situation, not only for the neighborhood and its neighborhood character, but also for the city of Lowell at large. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Anybody else wish to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishes to speak in opposition? In opposition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And we'll open up to the board for consideration. And Bill?
A couple of questions for Attorney Elides. Can you just explain to me, it says one way from Gorham Street and two-way from Winebeck. So do you come off of, if you're on Gorham and you're pulling into the site, there's a one-way street, going towards the school? I'm trying to understand how this looks.
No, there's Winebeck will remain 2 ways.
Okay.
So the whole point is that they didn't want people exiting from the new parking lot. That's why it's only one way in. And then they're going to come out onto Winebeck Street, turn right.
So Winebeck stays a 2-way.
Right.
It's where the gentleman was pointing out where if you wanted to pull into the parking lot, that's the one way.
Yeah, that was the yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, I get confused easy, so.
Well, so do I, but reading plans was not.
I was just trying to understand the traffic flow, the way it was presented, but I understand what it says now.
Right.
So that would also mean, I think the gentleman explained, if students were being dropped off by their parents at the Butler, if they come back down Winebeck, they could pull into the parking lot if they wanted to,
That's
or
also why
proceed out the Gorham and leave.
Exactly. We would hope for the tenants' sake that would happen.
I think Ms. McCarthy had mentioned something about business hours. Now, I know you've talked about, there's a current business that's in there right now. They're planning on staying in business as far as I would know, right?
Right.
Now, the convenience store that you've kind of talked about, or a larger-than convenience store, do you have any preliminary plans, what that would look like?
Not really. I don't know if Mr. Patel, I think he intends to run it himself, but, or maybe you could speak to that, Neil. I'm certainly, I can tell you one thing, it's not going to be 24 hours, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
And would that be where you have retail, section 5, would that be where the convenience store would be?
In the middle, I think, is
Yeah.
that?
It
Yes.
says 6,500 square feet.
Right, right. Correct.
Retail 1 to 5, pretty much, that all will be somewhat occupied with the retail section.
So the current existing
The
business is
store,
in retail 1, right?
Right.
Okay.
Existing is retail 1, and that could be internal relocation could happen.
Yep.
But plan is to internal retail 1 would be still continue and enlarge that store with the more varieties offering kind of thing.
Yep.
And then the demolition sections of 40 by 40 that is being currently sold as a wholesale restaurant supply kind of DCs and everything.
Yep.
So those will be moved into one of these section and grow from there.
Okay, so what you're showing on the plan is potentially 5 different businesses, I'll say, by retails 1 through 5. Is that fair enough to say?
Actually may not be 5 businesses because 1 and 2 may be combined together to make one retail, like as we saying Super 8 kind of thing.
Yep.
And then current 2 businesses could go into number 5. So you only left with other 2 sections, and those can be used as a retail for something else.
Correct. So I guess just based on the way I'm looking at the plan, the way it's laid out here, excuse me, laid out here, and then you're also talking about the wholesale and distribution and back.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get an idea of, when we talk about, and I think in your plans, you talked about employment, jobs.
Right.
How many spaces now get consumed by the number of potential employees for the site?
Well,
I know you can't come up with a definitive number, but, I mean, I like the look of the plan, but I also look at the number of spaces, and then I start thinking about, and we've gone through this with a few different businesses over the number of employees on a site and customers that come in. Obviously, if the businesses are flourishing, you'd like to see every parking spot occupied. That's why, when I look at this, I'm just trying to gauge a little bit of, if you had full employment and everything was up and running, and I'm sure that would be a plan we'd like to see. The 50 spaces that you're providing, I just want to make sure that, because obviously if we get into overflow, where does the additional parking go and that kind of stuff?
first of all, as you know, it's a problem we'd love to deal with.
Absolutely, yeah.
But secondly, as I've said a couple of times, it's really a no man's land back there. I mean, I don't know if, I bet you if you asked anybody in the city of Lowell where Winebeck Street is, you'd be lucky to get 1 out of 1,000. I never would have been able to tell you that. And I've been up there a few times, aside from the very limited time when the school is first opening and then coming out, there's no one around there. So, I mean, I know that doesn't answer the question per se, but as you know, hopefully when we get to work this stuff out with the city, maybe we can even talk about across the street doing something about parking there if the street ever gets fixed.
Yeah, I guess the retail part of it probably be where you'd pick up the most customers and potential people working. Now, obviously, you might get some neighborhood people that would walk to work and and that type of scenario. And
It's an in and out kind of thing.
and I'm sure the storage area could be, you know, you got one guy operating a forklift or something. I know it's down the road. Now, I had written in here on the dumpsters, and I can see where you segregated the garbage dumpster location there. I assume you just bring a truck in and once a week or twice a week pick up. Where are deliveries going to be, say, for the retail businesses? Where is that shown on the plan?
So delivery options are available 2 places. There is a 2 docks that is being offered over there. And the third option is pretty much, if required to, there is a 20 feet opening on the Wayneback side. Could bring the truck all the way back to the close to the parking number 15 to do delivery, but that should be a off time, not in any peak hours.
Yep.
But if we look at the existing bay that is between 42 and 43, that's the one, and second one is 48 and 49. So those are the existing bay where delivery can be happen.
Yeah, well, I saw those, and but then I kind of said to myself, you know, if
How the
everything's up
transit
and
over there.
running,
And
obviously
that's
you're not
why-
gonna bring it in there and bring it all the way down, so I was looking for where an area would be for deliveries for, say, that retail section. When you say parking spot 15, or do you mean next to 14?
Next to 14, kind
Yeah,
of.
in that corner section
In
there.
the corner area would be one way to basically bring the groceries.
Yeah,
And if
well,
I-
again, the way I look at it is now, that's basically where you have, you know, almost 30 parking spots, and if you get delivery trucks coming and backing up there, and so, I don't know if that's the only spot that you have, but I just figured I'd ask that question.
So original proposal was on a left-hand corner, basically on a left side of the property. There is like a 12 feet sections you see. We proposed over there coming from Gorham Street. But then we started working with the traffic engineer and everything. They proposed not to enter through that area or any kind of a loading, unloading in that area. So we were stuck by utilizing this method, and otherwise it would be ideal for loading and unloading in that area, but at the same time it would disturb the Gorham Street traffic over there.
Right. And the proposed sign, we're not entertaining that tonight, right? That's gonna be on a separate meeting if we get there.
Correct.
Any landscaping along
All of the front of
Weinbeck?
Gorham Street.
Yeah, I know this gentleman explained the front.
We've agreed to an amount that conforms to the city requirements. No variance is required as part of the parking lot itself. And as far as the rest of Weinbeck Street goes, that's going to wait, I guess, to see how we can work things out with the city. But obviously, to the extent that we can try to do something to make that area more attractive, we're going to do that.
Okay. And lighting, is there a plan for, I guess, maybe new lighting with the new, I guess I'll call it
think it's
facelift
part-
to the building?
I think there are 4, in the plan, there is 4 lightings are already 150 watts or somewhere in that range. 4 lighting will be wall mount lighting will be installed
On the building.
on the building itself.
Well, I think it's, you know, a great plan, and like you say, you'd like to have the problem that you get all the spaces tied up, and I didn't want to shoot a hole in it, I just kind of looking
Oh, no,
aggressively at it, if you had overflow, where would the overflow go next? And I guess we don't want traffic on Gorham
We're
Street.
dying
but-
for overflow.
I know,
Mr. Bailey.
I know, yep. And I'm sure the neighborhood would probably be enthused to see at least to see the building get revitalized and refreshed and businesses flourishing, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And Gary?
Just briefly through you, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a welcome site. It's a good project. I think it does open up the gateway to the city. I travel up and down that road 2, 3, 4 times a day, going out to Barica, so I think it's a great plan. I do want to refer to one of the conditions by the planning board relating to deliveries. And point 6 is the applicant will not allow or utilize tractor-trailer trucks for deliveries. Just as a brief explanation, and knowing a little bit about trucking, is there gonna be a minimum, is he agreeing with leases, a minimum size of trucks, as in a box truck, single-wheeled, not double-wheeled trucks?
Yes. I'll let Mr. Patel.
I think in the planning board, we agreed that there wouldn't be any 18-wheelers because next to the school as well as the traffic on Gorham Street, and it's not ideal to bring that and turnaround of 18-wheelers. So safety point of view as well as the turnaround as well as the traffic, 18-wheelers will not be allowed over there. So anything smaller than 18-wheelers, which the next one comes down to is 45 to 49 feet truck, and there could be more than 4-wheelers, could be 6-wheeler because of the load or anything, but lengthwise we're limiting to that 49 feet in that range because 18-wheelers comes down to be about 70 feet long, and we're not planning to do that. Hope that answers your question.
No, it didn't answer my question, and to affirm that agreement, you're gonna utilize some type of contract with your lessees? My only concern would be that it, and not to be detrimental to the plan, because I'm in support of it, but 2-3 years down the line, how, with the trucking industry, there could be a concern if a business left in it.
I probably should have made it a little clearer in terms of what we talked about with the planning board and the planning department during this time, which is immediately after, hopefully, an approval of our plan now, we need to talk to the city to see if there's some way that, A, we can deal with things like how and when Winebeck Street can be better finished, and there's also room in the area between Winebeck and the school. There's a wide open area there that in a worst case scenario, not worst case, but if we can get to the point with city approval, and obviously at that point we'd come back to the planning board because they have their conditions, the plan as it's approved now, and maybe we can work something out, but certainly for something bigger. I mean, he's not looking for anything bigger, that's the big thing. But if it ever got to that point, it was something that we'd have to work out with the city. We can't do on our own because that's a city street there.
And I agree, and I just want to be fair to all parties, including the petitioner. Certainly if I would be in an ownership, I would want my business to expand, and when business expands, your trucking expands. So I wouldn't want to put anybody in a position where they wouldn't be able to be more successful.
Right.
So I was just curious when I read that, and I appreciate the explanation by both parties, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Gary. And Vesna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney Flood, all the conditions set forth by the DPD was agreed upon by the petitioner, right?
Correct.
I do concur with Mr. Bailey that this is a good plan. And I do have questions with the 5 retail space as indicate now. Mr. Patel, all these retail space, are they going to stay as is, or is there any one of these spaces that being changed down the road by you, meaning converted to supermarket that Attorney Alai indicated? Which of those retail store now, retail space now is going to be changed or converted to supermarket that you indicated? Which one, number 1? I see number 1 to 5. Could you tell me which one?
So I think with the current plan, we have to sustain and pay the tax and everything. That is number 1 is pretty much running right now currently. So we would not disturb right away until we have a finish and clean up and bring to the conditions to number 2 and 3 and 4. 3 and 4 and 5s are pretty much in a well condition, but number 2 that I need to bring up to the level, and once the number 2 comes to the finish up conditions and presentable conditions, then 1 and 2 will be combined to make a market kind of thing, and then existing number 1 will be moved in a back, either number 3 or something else, but total space will be utilized in a retail, somehow section out in a probably not 5, but could be in a 4 different sections. The maximum of 4,
so
minimum.
So in the very near futures, when it's all being rehab or cleanup is going to turn into 4 retail space.
That is the ideal way we would like to see in a four position.
The supermarket that Attorney Elias indicated, what would you anticipate the operating hours for that space or that business?
I think normally it's operate between 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, but I'm willing to work with the zoning, chairmans and your decisions, and allow me to present whatever right hours that I can agree with.
All right. Well, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Cesar. Corey?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in agreement with the rest of the board members. I spent some time out there this afternoon, and it's dilapidated out there. It needs a facelift, no two ways about it, and this is a good plan. It's going to really help that neighborhood, too. The neighborhood groups here, they're in favor of it. But I do have a concern. Now, you got a total of 7 or 8 units total, and you only have currently 2 tenants. Rosenblum will stay, the party center will stay, correct? And the Superette you have lined up, correct? Okay, so that leaves, we still got, around 5 vacancies there, so I just want to make sure that this, whether it's this board or the city officials in the neighborhood have input with those remaining businesses, what goes in there. Because we do have a school right there, and we need to be selective what goes in there. So that's what I'm concerned about. Aaron, will that have to go through this board? Any new business that goes in there, or?
If I could, feel free to jump in, but one of the pieces of relief that's being requested tonight is a special permit to extend an existing non-conforming use, which has to do with the warehouse and light industrial uses with the current paper store. And my understanding is that there will be or at least there's a possibility of some light electronic fabrication kind of business there. So that's part of what is being requested with the special permit. If there's something, though, if there's a different type of use that is different than that requires a special permit according to the
So it may
table
need
of
to come
uses,
back, okay.
it will require coming back.
Which otherwise is proposed, will need to come back, but that still leaves us with 2 or 3 of the retail units that were vacant, so I just would like the city and the neighborhood to have some input on that. That's all I'm looking for, Other than that, I do support the project. It's a win-win. You're gonna really beautify that spot there that's pretty dangerous now, and to this point, and neglected, and I'm sure Mr. Patel, you'll do a good job there, so. Mr. Chairman, what can we do to protect those remaining 3 vacancies in the retail? I am a bit concerned. Do we need to put a condition on that for the neighborhood's protection and?
Yeah, no, I see your point in trying to protect the neighborhood. I just think that if we approve it, we're approving that group of uses. So long as it stays within that realm, and I think what Aaron was saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if it goes outside of what's already proposed, then they would have to come before the board. For instance, an adult bookstore or something, massage parlor.
Well, that would absolutely need to
piercing
either way.
place.
I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
that's not allowed by right anywhere in
It's
the city.
outside the
yeah.
realm, okay.
If it's outside of the realm of what's being requested, there are certain types of uses in this district that are allowed by right. For instance, a service business like a hair salon. That would be allowed by right, wouldn't require to come back to the zoning board, but would be reviewed in a zoning review anytime they went for a building permit application. All of those go through a zoning compliance review and would be done in the Development Services Department. So there are certain use types that aren't proposed now that are allowed by right, such as the hairstylist. But if it requires a special permit in the Article 12, the Article of Use types that are allowed, it would come back to the ZPA for.
Okay, all right, that's suffice then. I'm satisfied with that. If it's anything outside the realm, then it will come to this board. So I'm content with that. I think it's a great project, and I wish you the best. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. And Rick?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I know the building very well. I grew up there for many years. What's the second story of that building going to be used for up front, Mr. Leides?
Nothing.
At this point, nothing is made a decision on them, and in
So-
the future, something could come up, but nothing at this point.
So does the parking plan allow for the expansion into that second story?
I have put the 10 parking space future expansion kind of thing, so something if, because empty space is no good for city as well as me as a tenant, as ownership to this property, so someday in the future we may propose that. But go ahead.
But let me add, obviously, that would require a return to, we're only asking for the use for the first floor area. So that would require a return for any change like that.
All right. And I know you talked about Weinbeck Street. I know it exists there. Who owns it?
City of Lowell.
City of Lowell.
We
Never-
own halfway into it as an abutter, of course. But I'm in that awkward position of, on the one hand, saying, we want to do this project and get it done, but I can't really say on behalf of my client to the city, go fix your street. What we're saying is, we'd like to work with the city to see if there's a way that we can help them to do that, because obviously it's in everybody's best interest. But to answer your question, we own half of it, as you know.
Yeah, 'cause it's an unaccepted street, so obviously, as the city maintains it, so on. And going towards the end of the street, I can remember, there's
No
nothing but
man's-
tractor trailers ever been parked down there.
Yeah, I
since
call it
was-
no man's land.
It's always been packed with tractor trailer trucks down there for the Rosenblums and stuff. I mean, this is a great proposal for up there to get that building back on the right track. He did say about signage coming in off of Gorham Street, the one-way. They're gonna put signage up there, so it says, one-way, do not exit.
Absolutely. In every location where it becomes an issue, in other words, for example, on the parking lot, I'll call it backside, the other entrance and exit way, it'll say entrance, exit clearly. On the front, entrance only. And the signs will also show so that anyone who tries to get out on Gorham Street is going into running up on
Going the wrong way.
Right.
All right, that's it, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Bill.
Ms. Lay, since that's a city street so is there a plan to have like a crosswalk, for instance? If there's going to be a retail store, and I guess what I'm looking at is where you have the entrance and the exit from the parking area, the front parking area. So I guess I'll just say, if you put a retail convenience type of store in there, obviously I'm sure you'll get some of the students from the school. Is there any plan, do we need a crosswalk, some type of designated area for crossing the street there, just for safety concerns?
Well, we already agreed that we would upgrade the sidewalk along Gorham Street. In order to do that to city specifications, obviously, when we get to Weinbeck, we're going to have to do handicap, et cetera. And I think when we get into, I think you're talking about across Weinbeck, I think perhaps as far as the crosswalk goes. And that's something certainly that I think is anticipated. Certainly, I think Aaron and Joe will agree that we talked about those as some of the issues that need to be addressed when we talk about Weinbeck Street in general, yeah? So yes, I guess from our standpoint, if we can't do it again, we can't paint a city street ourselves or whatever, but we would certainly do our part to make sure that there's a crosswalk there.
So Aaron, does the city automatically, would they put in a crosswalk, for instance, where I'm talking about?
Not automatically. It's something we can work with the applicant, though, as he said, he's gonna, as part of the approval with the planning board, rebuild the sidewalk along Gorham Street. As a part of that improvement, the intersection at Weinbeck needs to be ADA compliant, so there's gonna be an element that has to do with ramping. And then as a part of that whole package, there could be striping that is included with that. The city would allow someone, we require frequently, in planning board projects at least, anytime there's a project done near an intersection that the crosswalk be restriped. It's not uncommon to do that.
Yeah, so the street, the way the street is the way it's staying. Whether the city puts a crosswalk in, that's up for,
The city probably wouldn't do it. It's something we work with the applicant to have the applicant do.
okay. Which would mean, and I know I'm going to ask the question, and I know the answer is no, but there's not going to be any type of sidewalk on the opposite side of Wineback,
On the,
like heading towards the school, for instance.
on the school side.
There's no existing sidewalk right now. I would just,
Well, on the school side?
yes.
Well, I said no, but Aaron proved me wrong. No, I said it was 30 inches, and he went up with a tape measure and said it's 42, but it's not the whole distance. It's along the pool.
Okay, yep, okay, yep. No, when we were talking about City Street, I'm just envisioning, again, if a convenience store goes in there,
Yeah.
I could just,
There is actually, however, a 42-inch wide, not very wide sidewalk and a curb there.
Yep.
On that side.
okay. Well said, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, any other comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion, I wanted, if the board feels there's any additional conditions we need to add. I don't see that, but.
No, I think what we'd do is just incorporate the conditions imposed by the planning board, 1 through 10.
I'll make a motion to approve with the following condition, that the petitioner adopt the conditions set forth by the planning board.
Second the motion.
And roll call, Aaron, please.
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Belanger?
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Gary?
Approve with condition?
Mr. Noon?
Approve with condition.
Mr. Perrin?
Approve with conditions.
Okay, you've been unanimously approved. I just need you, Attorney Lightis, to sign and date this plan, and good luck with your project, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any other further business minutes to approve or anything?
I don't believe so. I'd like to thank Carol McCarthy and the neighborhood group for doing their job. Thank you very much. And no, there's no minutes, Mr. Chairman, so I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.